when we talk ultimately here about garnering resources and strategic budgeting, you're talking about being a constant advocate in making the case of how it infuses into everything that the university does, making the case that it actually represents one of the largest global markets for increasing enrollments. You're making the case on a constant basis, where I know you're also looking for your own champions internally. But what I'm hearing you say is we need to be the champions for how we're helping the institution. And that's how we're going to garner our support internally. Is that a good representation of what you're saying?
It's the perfect representation. Yes. We have to internally show that we are everywhere, that what we do impacts most, if not everything, that the university is doing or could impact if embedded into those activities and those programs and so forth. That's really how you make the case, is to show that we're just delivering something that is essential to everything we do.
How does that process work well? And then what are the lessons that you've learned for doing this for 30 years and putting together those budgets and pitching and constantly being that advocate? What's the advice that you could give folks that are constantly trying to do that themselves that maybe don't have the same mission that Western Michigan University does, that need some advice and some help in that area?
I think that might be where strategic budgeting comes in, and which has been something that I've also been pushing for as a label in international, as in a focus in international education and internationalization. There are two metaphors that I tend to use. One is that first, sometimes you have to live with the fact that you must show that the plane flies, that the airplane flies. You must show that you can take it off the ground, even if it's not fully finished, so that people see it works and you get their attention. It reminds me of when you see those images of the first airplanes, the first version of, they don't even look like airplanes, some of them, that the pioneers of aviation were trying to show the world that they could make these contraptions that, that flew. We have to do sometimes the same thing. We have to show that this works, this global learning program, this COIL program. You have to sometimes set up initiatives that are not perfect to start with, but they show the potential. So I think that's always very important. You can't wait for everything to be okay and almost perfect for you to design the wonderful study abroad program and the wonderful global learning program and so forth. You have to do things first to show, okay, we can make this work. And then you also have to show that you can do it in a financially sustainable manner. So the second stage of showing that the plane flies is, okay, now you go on to build something that is financially sustainable. No sinking ship will reach its journey. And so you have to show that you might have a good idea, you might have a great program, but more than that, that this can work consistently. And it's not a one-off thing that you could make it work for one day or 1 month or 1 year, but then it disappears into thin air because you've never thought about how to sustain that. So the second stage is really build something that is financially sustainable by budgeting correctly, by being able to have a comprehensive budgeting strategy, and also to align your budgeting with the strategy of the university. And that's another important part of what strategic budgeting is, that you have to connect the strategy of the university, the strategic plan of the university, to what you're doing. Or I should say, connect what you're doing to the strategic planning of the university. To show again, because at that point, you're again making the case for internationalization. You're saying, here are all these programs and initiatives that are perfectly aligned with all these strategies in the institution's strategic plan. And here are they correctly budgeted so we can show that they will be financially sustainable and can last for the next 5 years, 10 years, endlessly. And so that's really the importance of strategic budgeting. It's really the essence of making the case for international education. It's important to make the case for international education through a strategic budgeting approach.
And what are the most important proof points on the sustainability that what you're doing? Yes, you can get it up, it can fly, but guess what? We can keep it in the air, right? And it's going to fit into the overall mission. But what are the proof points that it's sustainable, that it's something that's going to last?
You have to, just like in any other business initiative or economic initiative, you have to show that numbers supporting there's a market, there's demand, that there's demand, that there's a need. And in global education, again, the need goes to, or in global engagement, the need is about international interactions to support our research, global learning programs to increase global competence of students, including those who might never leave their home country.
Mhm.
It's to show that competence, that what you're doing in terms of demand is important, that there's a demand for it, there's a need for it. And so once you show that there's a demand and there's a need for it institutionally, then you should show that it has a cost, that you know what the cost is. You've assessed all dimensions of the cost, and you also know what the institution needs to fund it on a sustainable way.
That sounds like a good, solid business plan.
You always need a good business plan.